When you look through the history of the coast over the last 100 years, there has been a lot of coastal change. There are natural processes which drive coastal accretion or coastal build-up and coastal erosion. And we can see along the northern part of the Kapiti Coast there's been a long history of growth, whereas in the last 20, 30, even 50 years, particularly down in Paikakarihi and Raumati South, we can see that there's been quite a long period of coastal erosion. On top of that, we've got quite a long record of what the tide has been doing over 120 years, and by looking at the tidal records we can get a measure of what sea level's been doing over a long period of time. And from those tide gauge records we can see that sea level's been rising quite strongly over the last 100 years, and particularly in the last 50 years. So we've got sea level rising as well at around 2 to 3 millimetres every single year, and that's having an impact on the coast, and we're starting to see impacts on seawalls and houses that have been built in that coastal environment. On top of that, we've also got records of what the land's doing, and we're all familiar with the earthquakes that have happened in Christchurch and Kaikoura, and in particularly the Kaikoura earthquake that happened in 2016. We registered a change in the land level in Wellington, and for that it went down a little bit and it's been rising up, but we're able to take continuous GPS measurements of that land surface over time, and what we found over the last 20 years is that on average the whole region has been sinking down at rates of about 1 to 4 millimetres per annum, the whole lower North Island, the whole Wellington region. So the Kapiti Coast, it's around about 1 to 3 millimetres per annum sinking down, and what we're finding is that with the sea level rising and with the land surface sinking down a little bit, we've got a double whammy. There's been some quite dramatic changes that we've noticed, and it occurs to me that there's been almost an uptick in the change compared to, say, the previous 15 or 20 years. There's been a real uptick, and I think quite a lot of that has been probably due to sea level rise and the impacts that we're seeing from that. So the thing with coastal erosion is it can be one of those slow creeping things that just happens. You'll get a storm event and there will be a bit of a cut to the beach, you'll lose a bit more sand. Sometimes you'll get a really big storm event and you'll see that there's been, the front of the dune has been eaten out, or there'll be a big loss of sand in the beach. But over the next few months it might come back. But each storm that happens, particularly when you have a rising sea level and you have a seawall truncating the beach, which is locking up a lot of the sand, what will happen is the beach doesn't quite recover to the same point that it did before. So over time, over a period of years and decades, you just start slowly losing that beach. In those places where there is a severe and critical erosion problem, we're kind of stuck for the moment with some of those harder engineering methods. But there might be processes that we can talk through with the community, with local landowners, and generate some options about how we might manage that going forward.